Hello, welcome. I don't know if everybody can hear or see me, but if you can, just give me a little thumbs up. Welcome, everyone. It is my pleasure to be kicking us off today. I see some friendly faces. Hello, digital unsettlers. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us to come chat on this Thursday. While we are getting started and letting everyone join, getting everything going, let me give you some quick tech notes so you can understand our setup and a little bit more about how we're working digitally. So as you can see, welcome to Zoom. We are all here. This is actually one of the platforms that we use to do our virtual retreats. So you're getting a little preview of what it's like. Our tips are to keep your microphones on mute. You can turn your video on or off if you'd like. We, of course, like video on for our retreats, but we understand today if you want to just be listening in, that's totally fine. And there's a little button up at the top that looks like a grid that's called Gallery View. And if you push that, then you get to have a really fun screen and see everyone who's here joining us. See some interesting backgrounds, see some confused faces. It's kind of fun. We love it. As we mentioned, we're going to have mics on mute for now. This is just to help with background noise and so on. But we will be chipping in. A few of us here are going to be hosting you. My name is Lala, and I am going to kick stuff off. I think we should get this party started. So one last thing to mention just on the tech side, yeah, I saw some thumbs up, thanks guys, is we have a chat box. So you can go down and you'll see a little chat bubble, and if you click that, it'll pop open to the side of your screen. And your chat box is yours for the using. So please feel free to go ahead and start chatting in there. You can say hi, tell us where you're calling in from. I bet we have a pretty global crew here. You can ask questions in there. Later on, we're going to be leaving plenty of time for Q&A. So if you want to wait a bit to start asking questions, you can, or you can go ahead and start putting them in. But yes, we love the chat. Don't worry about chatting over us as we're talking. That's okay. We can multitask, and it is really fun to have conversations going. So, okay, we're in, we're live, we're set up with tech, we're good to go. We see happy faces. Guys, officially, let me welcome you to our Unsettled virtual retreat sneak peek webinar. I want to do a few quick introductions and give you a quick agenda so you know what our plan is for today. Let me go ahead and start. My name is Lala, and as I mentioned, I'm one of your co-hosts today. I am Unsettled's VP of Experience, which basically is just fancy talk for saying that I get to think a lot about what it means to live unsettled. This means designing our trips, this means planning our experiences, this means facilitating and co-hosting them. It also means running the team of incredible experience leaders and, of course, living unsettled myself. So we have quite an international crew. I'm calling in from Bangkok, Thailand, which is my base. I see that we have people in Amsterdam, Pittsburgh, Brazil. Oh my gosh, calling in from Hamburg, Montreal. You can see this is about par for the course for us. We love a good mixed up global crew. And yes, I'm about to hit the road in 3 days' time, but for now, I get to have one little check-in from home. Let me also introduce my co-host. Maybe you can pick him out from the crowd. He's sporting quite a manly beard today. Jonathan Kalin, come give us a hello. Tell us who you are.
I feel like I should be like running onto stage with like a flag and a banner. Thanks for the intro, Lala. Hey, everybody. Jonathan Kalin, one of the co-founders of Unsettled and one of the facilitators of our Lifestyle Incubator. Calling in from warm Puerto Rico, so sending a lot of warmth to Tana in negative 36 degrees and whoever's in Lapland. Lisa, sorry guys, I'm sending some good vibes your way. Some super familiar faces, people I've talked to over the past months, people we've hosted, so awesome to have everybody here. So I'll be hosting this with Lala, and I would like to also welcome our amazing alumni who are going to be sharing their time and their experiences with us on this call. So we've got Bianca, we've got, maybe raise your hand, there we go. We've got Daniela, where is she? There we go. We've got Pedro, where is he? There we go. And we have Lisa M. We call her Lisa M because there were 3 Lisas last month, and Lisa M is just Lisa M. So awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us. After a month looking at us on screens, I'm glad you're not sick of us, and that you're excited to come back and share your experience with everybody here. We have a super full house today. That is awesome. I think we're something like 38, 40. Cool. Let's kick things off. Lala, you want to kind of go through the agenda and we will do this.
Yeah, let's go through a quick agenda. We do have a lot to go over. We're hoping that we can have the call be about 30 minutes or so, maybe 45. Like I said, at the end, we're going to open it up for some questions so you can start to think about that. And that might take us over a bit. But our quick agenda is we want to first give you a little bit of the backstory of Unsettled and our virtual retreat and what all that jazz is. Then we want to walk you through a brief overview of our setup. So how is our Lifestyle Incubator set up? What are the format? Like, what are the kind of key features that can help you understand what that month online actually looks like? Then it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't give a chance for our alumni to tell you their experience, because that's the only experience that matters, is the one that you have. So we think it's kind of interesting to hear 4 different ways that people experienced our past month. And then, like I said, we want to open it up to Q&A. So we will start answering some questions in the chat. We will also be pulling them out later and coming back to them. But all of that should take us through our full time. And I think, as I said, we want to start by talking a little bit about the history of Unsettled and how we got to our virtual retreat program. And there is no better person to do that than the co-founder man himself. So John, I'm passing it straight back to you. Hopefully you can take us from here.
I can indeed. It's something I love to talk about. So I'll just give you guys a quick history, quick recap of how we got here. We love the story of how more than the what, and Lala will jump into the what, but I will explain a little bit of the how. So for those of you who are not super familiar with Unsettled, we didn't start from some brilliant business idea or aha moment. Unsettled really came from a set of values, right? From a way that we wanted to live our lives. And that was about 6 years ago. My co-founder and I, we had spent most of our lives as freelancers, entrepreneurs. I'm getting some traffic noise from somebody. I thought it was Lala in Bangkok, but it's not. So somebody maybe mute who's got some scooters and things behind them. Anyways, we started about 6 years ago. Michael and I had both had very independent lives as entrepreneurs, freelancers. I was in media. He was also in media. And, we were looking for a way to, I think, accelerate the kind of lifestyle that we had, but also address some of the challenges and difficulties we had in navigating decisions and navigating a untraditional path in life, right? So when you don't work in a corporate environment, or when you're looking for paths that are a little unconventional and traditional, one of the hardest things is finding those communities and having those conversations around, how do I find more growth? How do I find more meaning? How do I find more inspiration? How do I find those networks and experiences and things that challenged me and helped me grow? And so, we started off doing something we loved, which was sailing. And we organized about 40 friends from all over the world on a couple sailboats. I'm a skipper. Michael's a skipper as well, in the Caribbean. And it turned out not just to be a great holiday, but actually one of the most meaningful weeks of our lives, because the kinds of conversations you have in that environment, the kinds of things that come up when you bring those people together, when you bring people who are asking these bigger questions, are incredible, right? And it was one of the most, I'd say, transformative experiences in our lives, not only because it led to Unsettled, but also because I think the personal development and the personal growth that came through those connections and conversations really continue to this day. And so really after that, we started looking and saying, well, how can we dive into this, right? What do we know best? Let's start with experiences. And, in the 6 years since, 4 years being full-time, we have run through Unsettled over 100 retreats for 2,200 people from 80 countries, in about 20 countries around the world. And so we have had some incredible experiences. These retreats have really been about, living and experimenting with a different kind of lifestyle, right? Taking 1 month or 2 weeks out of your life to think differently, to work differently, to exist differently, to meet new people, make new connections. And so, after running 100 retreats and after, meeting over 2,200 people, one of the things that we heard was, how can I experience Unsettled without having to travel halfway around the world to Bali, right? How do I get myself into this mode of thinking? How do I get myself into sort of this level or sense of openness and possibility, and experiment with my lives no matter where I am, or experiment with my life no matter where I am? And so we started thinking about it. We realized that the approach to living unsettled is as much about an approach, exactly that, as it is about taking a specific trip. And so we really believe that people could unsettle themselves anywhere. So we have designed this Lifestyle Incubator. We are currently about to open up our third. We have participants from the last one on this call. We have another webinar that we recorded with participants from the first one that we did as well. And we can send you that link after this. And, you know, I think just speaking broadly to the purpose, you know, we're really looking to facilitate ways to navigate life, to design life, to be intentional about life, about our time and our choices, you know. And we approach the design of this experience by asking the tough questions, by curating a diverse community of people, and developing sort of lifelong tools and processes that are designed to give clarity and direction, but not prescriptive solutions. And so before I pass it off to Lala, I think it's important to say what this is not, because I think that's equally, if not more important than what this is. The Lifestyle Incubator is not about finding your dream job, becoming a successful freelancer, or, you know, finding the 5-step solution to success, right? We're not Tony Robbins. We're not Tim Ferriss. We're not, you know, your motivational speaker. You know, it's really a no bullshit way of looking at frameworks, tools, and resources to help you make decisions and to set the right intentions and to get clarity on where you want to go. You know, it's rooted in questions and not specific answers, because every single one of us is coming at this with a different set of experiences, a different set of desires, a different set of expectations. And so, you know, we look at this as saying, how do we provide the processes, the tools, the community, the experience, and the conversations for you to get what you want out of it? And we do this in a really highly interactive way. You know, it's not a typical online course, and it's definitely different than reading a book. So, you know, we look at this as really an exciting way to continue our personal mission and our company mission of inspiring a lifelong pursuit of growth, meaning, and adventure. And we hope you guys are enjoying this adventure so far. It's been 13 minutes, and we look forward to seeing you going forward. So with that, I'm going to pass it back off to Lala to maybe share a little more about the design, as well as, you know, some of the structural elements and how it really works. And then we're going to quickly hop into our alumni Q&A. So Lala, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. The momentum that you have when you talk about Unsettled and sailing and how much fun you had setting up is, I feel like that snowballs real fast. It's really fun to hear about. But it was quite an interesting challenge for us at Unsettled to take something that up until this point has been an in-person experience and turn it into something virtual. And we love a good design challenge. And we really, really had this foundational belief that anyone could live unsettled, that Unsettled could go location independent, just like we tell anyone that comes on a retreat with us that they can go location independent. And so in order to do that, we kind of pulled together a few key things, and we really based it off of our 30-day design. So what we love about this is that this is a digital way for you to live unsettled. And it takes kind of everything that we've learned running retreats all over the world. It takes the workshops and the interactions and the conversations we've had about living intentionally. And it takes some of the most important things that we learned from running retreats, which is mainly that people have their own answers and that community can really help bring out those answers. So we really wanted to ground into what a communal experience could be online. And as usually happens with Unsettled retreats, we have this idea for this platform and this process, and then we put it in the hands of incredible people who actually use it, run it through the ringer, and impress us with the results and really elevate it to the next level. So we first come together around this central question, which John mentioned. This is not about answers. This is about questions. And what is the next best question? The next best question that we wanted to ask is, what's next for me? How do I kind of capture that momentum, get clarity? And so our structure is really designed around frameworks and exercises that help us to do that. what do you need to know? Well, first of all, it's 30 days. So it is a full commitment, and you kind of get out of it what you put into it. Meaning you can show up and kind of do it on the surface level. You can take it real deep. You can spend an hour reading an exercise. You can spend 3 or 4 hours doing it. We always joke, I think some of our alumni will give me a knowing look here, but we say you want to go so deep, but not so deep that you drown. So there's a nice happy medium, but it is designed to fit around the rest of your life. So the work that you have to do, your normal social life, your responsibilities, your families, and so on. But having said that, it does take some focus. It does take some attention. This is how it happens. So there are 16 hours of live workshops and sessions. These are hosted live, much like this is being hosted in Zoom. You get to see everyone, you can chat. They're a little bit more interactive than this has been so far, but you can get a sense of it. These are also recorded, so if you miss a session or you need to come back, they are available. They get posted a few hours after we have the session, and they're kind of fun. Sometimes there's some like extra side conversations that you only get when you watch a recording, but it's a different experience to watch a recording, but you're not exactly missing out. So there's some flexibility there. We've had people who've never missed a session. We've had people who've done every session recording and every variation in between. So it's pretty flexible. On top of this, you can also expect roughly 8 offline exercises. So these are worksheets, frameworks, and assignments that are meant to kind of support your journey. Now, it is worth mentioning that the live sessions that we have, they're not lectures, they're not us talking, they're working sessions. So we're doing work together, we are answering questions, we're having discussions, we're going into breakout rooms and talking there, and they're working sessions. So you show up, pen, paper, notebook in hand, and plan to get to work. If you can't tell what I'm getting at, it's expect to be active, not passive. So outside of these core sessions and these core exercises, there are a few other opportunities for us to connect. One is a set of office hours. So these are open hours that we host every week. There's 2 different times. They're about an hour. And therefore, anyone who wants to jump online and go a little bit deeper, have a little bit more conversation, and they're completely flexible. They're tailored to whoever shows up. And we call them open hours because that's what they are. They're open. You can expect about 8 hours of open hour time throughout the course of the month. Like I said, there's 2 hours a week. And then on top of that, we do one-on-ones. One-on-ones can show up in a few different ways. They can show up as one-on-ones with one of us, your facilitators, which are, I would say, roughly 30-minute check-ins. How you doing? What are you working on? Can we like zoom in and personalize this month a little bit more for you? Can we tweak your work specifically? But there's also the possibility of doing one-on-ones with anyone in your group who's interested. So you could have 8 million one-on-ones if you wanted to. That might be a little excessive, but you could have a bunch. There is no limit. And this is where that kind of unsettled co-created element comes in, where the group together gets to decide how they want to show up and share their journeys and how they want to show up and support each other. I am a firm believer that this is where the magic happens, but that's just my personal opinion. You could see for yourself. On top of this, you're never really disconnected because we also have an ongoing Slack platform. So that is a place to chat, to share, to post. What I love about Slack is, again, it's very democratic. So we all kind of create it together. We decide as a group how we want to use it. And one of my favorite things, besides the custom emojis, is that Slack works for your time zone, which means someone puts a message and you don't have to answer it until you're awake the next morning, but you don't miss out on the conversations because they're kind of going on around the clock and around the globe. So those are kind of the core elements that make up the month. And there's a baseline, and then there's a possibility for you to build on them and expand on them as you go, which what I'm trying to say here is you get to make the month your own. At the end of the day, you're really investing your own time in your own space, and you get to put it together an intentional plan. And this is how we get to have a shared experience, but that's also deeply personal and tailored to you and unique to you. So what does a typical week look like if I were to put it together? John, you want to plug some stuff in? You want me to keep rolling with it?
Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll let the alumni share their sense of a week.
Okay, awesome. So, for example, we would have 2 live sessions a week. Like I said, the live sessions, there's 16 hours in total. So there's 2 live sessions every week. They're about 2 hours long. The reason why they're 2 hours long is to give us plenty of time to chat, to be working. We love to use breakout rooms, which if you haven't ever done them on Zoom before, it's this really cool way to have kind of private side conversations where you can go off, do a bit of work together, then jump back as a group. You could expect a call, for example, we tend to often schedule things based on East Coast time. So Sunday morning on the East Coast, which you know is Sunday afternoon in Europe, Sunday evening over here in Asia. That might be a live session. A few days later, on Tuesday, we do some office hours. Maybe then on Thursday, we have our second live session starting again on Sunday. So it's every few days, every 2 or 3 days, we're checking in and working together. And this is pretty intense, but it is designed to be intense so that you're getting the most out of the month. There is a lot to do. We cover a lot of different frameworks, a lot of different ideas. We start at the very beginning and try to work all the way through to set ourselves up. We do use a lot of the frameworks that come out of our Unsettled retreats, but way more intensively than we've done on any retreat. So on a normal Unsettled retreat, maybe we'll host 4 or 5 workshops. Here we're doing 8 plus. But John, maybe you could share some examples of the types of frameworks we might use.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think as Lala has sort of said, it's really about opening up conversations and opening up questions, right? So the types of prompts and the types of exercises that we do are really built around how do we help you arrive at some of your own answers and some of your own conclusions based on what's right for you. So, it looks like going back and understanding trends and patterns and journeys so far to make connections that you haven't made before, right? There's a lot of different ways that we examine how you can look at the processes and habits and things that you've done and have led to where you are today, and what you can learn and glean from them that can push you forward in a new way. It's broken down into 3 sections, right? One is sort of that reflective, that journey, that radical self-understanding. The second is more design and using design tools to look at your lifestyle and your career, because we don't see them as separate. I mean, I think given that we spend, I forget, what was the number? A third of our lives, a third of our living time.
90,000 hours.
Yeah, 9,000 hours of our lives working. That is life. That is our lifestyle. So we look at them as wholly integrated. And then we move into the final section, which is really accountability, structures, frameworks for how to move that forward. And so, everybody will land at different parts. I think everybody finds more value in some parts, more value in other parts, depending on what's interesting to you. But these are frameworks and tools that can be used in a lot of different contexts, and in many ways actually are adapted by you guys to use in your own way. So for every framework we've put out, I think our alumni and participants have actually shaped that in different ways and kind of used it in their own. And so, I think there's a lot we could go into on that, and I'm happy to follow up kind of more after this with anybody who kind of wants to dive a little bit deeper into that. But for now,
can I just say one thing? If I had to summarize John and Michael particularly and their frameworks, it would be sailing metaphors. Expect a ton of sailing metaphors. It should come as no surprise. And yes, they do help us figure out how to use them on land too. Is that fair?
Yeah, you will learn what dead reckoning is. You will learn what true north and magnetic north is. You will learn about tacking. You will learn about things you never thought you'd want to know about sailing. But actually, it's the ultimate journey into the unknown. Sailing is about being prepared. It's about being having everything that you need. It's about setting your points. It's about knowing where you're going, where you're from, how to navigate. So it is, we look at it very much as the process of how we live our lives is how we navigate sailing or in general. So yes, expect to hear a lot of that from us. So cool. Well, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to our alumni. In January, we had 26 people from 14 countries join the program, and we wanted to get a couple of them to share their experience. And so again, huge thanks to Lisa, to Pedro, to Daniela, and to Bianca. And a caveat I will say is that, remember, like, everybody's experience is personal and unique based on their own journey, right? And where they are in life. And I think between the mix of people we have very different stages in life, very different, ideas of what they're looking for, and which is, I think, the purpose of why we curated this group. So let's do it. I'm going to kind of round robin popcorn. I might call on people fairly or unfairly, but that's just how we do it. So the first question I want to start with is, I'd love for you all to share the story of how and why you ended up joining the incubator, right? Like, what were your last few months or years like that made you feel like this experience was the right next step for you? And because we got a couple of you, we'll keep it kind of short. I think you guys know how to do that. And I'm going to call on Bianca first because I know she's in Puerto Rico. So that's just unfair. But Bianca, please kick us off.
Hi, everyone. So for me, it was a little bit about how I've been moving around in different kinds of jobs in multinational companies that require a lot of working hours. And I was also always questioning myself, is this where I want to be investing my time on? And then I saw a post from Unsettled on Instagram, and it had this, I don't know, huge paragraph on what are you spending your, I read it all, what are you spending your time on? And at the end, it said something along the lines of, so the question is, if you weren't getting paid, would you still do your job? And that for me resonated a lot. It was a post about the virtual retreat that was actually for the first session of the virtual retreat. It was in a tough period for me in terms of work. So I decided to do the second one, which was in January. And that's how I got there. I don't know, Jonathan, if you want to popcorn to someone else.
You know how it works. Go for it.
Okay, so Pedro.
Great. How are you guys? For me, it was something that I had a crush on Unsettled for a long time. I met them in 2017, but I didn't have enough time to go to a retreat or participate in any, or sometimes I didn't have enough money, or sometimes I didn't have the time to go. And past year, I went to Chile with one friend of mine and in a vacation, and this trip, it was an amazing time there, and I got some time to reflect about my future and the things I wanted to do. And while I was coming back to Brazil, I received an Instagram ad telling about the retreat, and I said, and I looked at the description. I said, "Wow, maybe this can help me to figure out how I can plan with more intentions the next steps I want to do, because what I live, this experience that I lived in Chile, I want to have this more often in my life. So I just subscribe to join. That's it. And now I'm going to popcorn for my girl, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. Let's see. So I think sometime in the middle of 2019, I ran across something that was about Unsettled. And I looked up the website and I was like, oh my God, I finally found my people, was what the phrase that came out of my mouth was. And I thought at some point I wanted to do one of the 30-day retreats. And then I kind of just put that on the back shelf. Then towards the end of the year, December-ish, it was the end of a big work project. It was the beginning of a new year, a new decade. I recently went through a breakup of a relationship, and I had always been kind of like, I'm at a point in my career where I'm thinking about how do I want to spend the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And like, how do I shift into something where work and making money because I have to make money is like a lesser thing, and thinking intentionally about designing the next phase. And I've been thinking about this, but it's always been in my head or reading a book, and I just never seem to make any progress on it. So I thought that January virtual retreat would be a great kind of environment structured framework to put some flesh around it. And I didn't know, it went completely differently than I expected, but that's what originally interested me. And it did all that and more. So yeah, so that's what got me there. So now Daniela, popcorn.
Hi everyone, great to. Hi Hi everyone, great to be here and to see you all again. I first came across Unsettled through a Facebook ad, I think like back in 2017, and I had it on my mind for a while, and there was something about the manifesto on the website that really resonated with me about, you know, you're done everything you wanted, you have friends, you've thrived in the corporate world, and like now what? So it's been really about finding just like more meaning and purpose in the work that I do, and like trying to link more of my life, like my personal life and who I am, with the kind of work that I want to do. And I did Unsettled in Porto in 2018. And I really liked the program. I think that I was coming from like a situation from work, kind of like burnout and just like really exhausted, that I was at crossroads of like trying to do my own projects and find kind of like what I really wanted to do. And the program was great, but I was really like, I think I was looking to find like something more structured and try to get out of this kind of like, I call it like a brain fog of like, I know what I don't want, but how do I move towards like what I do want, and just like trying to take that step further. And the virtual retreat really was amazing in providing that framework. And although there's still like a lot of work to do, but I feel like finally I'm in action and moving forward. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that. And thank you guys all. I want to move on to, you know, what something that challenged you or surprised you, right? I think everybody, even though we say come in with no expectations, what was something that challenged your expectations of yourself, or surprised or challenged you? It could have been a framework, a process, a workshop, a conversation, something that surprised you. Lisa, I'm going to pick on you first.
So I think I mentioned when I came in, I thought, okay, I've got this thing that I want to tackle. Like, I'll call it like, how do I build this retirement picture? And I thought, I've got a story in my head of what it could look like, but I can't get the roadmap in place. And maybe I can use this virtual retreat to build a roadmap. And what surprised me, an infinite number of things surprised me, but even on the first work session, it was less about building a roadmap, and it was a lot about stopping and doing the thing that I never allowed myself to do, to really ask the foundational questions. What has brought me joy over my life? What things have been most impactful? Where do I find meaning in my life? And what things from my past years do I want to take forward and intentionally have be a part of the next several decades? And so that work, going through and actually and giving it the time and giving myself the gift of the time to do it for me, and share that with other people. The things, the ahas that came out of it, that first workshop, like I remember I was dumbfounded when we finished the first call, just from some of the things that I found that mattered so much to me. And they were so life-giving and exciting, and it made me feel so much more validated for my life and excited, and realized that I actually have everything inside of me that I need going forward. It's not like it's this mystery thing out there. And the community and the tools and the frameworks and the conversations that we had allowed me to access that. So it just blew me away. I never expected anything like that. So. All right, who wants to go next? Are you choosing Jonathan, or am I popcorning?
I'll pick on, I think I'll pick on Bianca, because I feel like there's some conversations and things that we reflected on about specific frameworks that kind of look differently. I'm wondering if there's anything that stood out to you from those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, overall, all of the different exercises and the calls, they all brought a lot of value. But definitely there were some exercises that were easier for me, some exercises that were a little bit tougher, but it can be because of my personal journey. Like, for example, there's this specific exercise that for me was really, really tough. And then in one of the coaching sessions, specifically with Jonathan, we tackled it and basically made me look at it from a different perspective and using another framework. But at the end, what blew my mind the most was the way that I was able to get clarity on a different part of myself. Like, it's kind of like I was looking at myself with different lenses, and that was mind-blowing. So yeah, that was my experience.
Awesome. And Pedro, I know that you were king of one-on-ones. I feel like you had a lot of conversations with other people. I mean, what were some of the things that you guys discussed in those sort of one-on-one sessions with other participants, or things that kind of came up that you found as, you know, challenges for either yourself or challenges for collectively that kind of everybody was going through? I'm curious your thoughts.
Great. Well, what I saw the most in my peers in the virtual retreat, they were trying to gain more clarity about their steps they're going to take, because like Daniela shared with us, sometimes we know the things we don't want for our life, but we don't know how to have a very, very, very clear vision of the path we want to choose that's right for us, something that gets us energized and happy. And because we have a lot of options, and sometimes we got confused of which path we're going to choose. And in those conversations, sometimes we talk about how gain more clarity about these things. And also we talk and shared a lot about the fears we had, because sometimes we know a small step we need to take to get more clarity, but sometimes we are afraid to take those steps because our limiting beliefs. And I feel we talk about a lot about those kind of things, like how can we gain more clarity, and how can we overcome our own personal fears.
Awesome. Thanks, Pedro. And Daniela, I mean, you are one of the few who was on this experience that has been on an actual Unsettled retreat. You know, what was your first impression of like the first day or first session? I mean, coming into it, having 27 complete strangers on a call like this, what matched your expectations, what challenged them, what was different, what was unexpected? How were those first kind of 2 days on the virtual retreat for you?
It was awesome. It's definitely a bit overwhelming at the beginning because there's so many participants, and just like keeping track of where everyone is in the world, and kind of like what their reason for being here, like what's going on, just having like a quick profile of like where everyone is at. But I think we get to know each other like in no time, and it's just fantastic how we can be like so far away geographically, but I found like I've had like more meaningful conversations with people that like some of the participants that were like kilometers away, like more meaningful than, I don't know, maybe some of my coworkers that are right next door. Like, it's just, it sounds kind of strange, like when we're not used to, like I wasn't used to these like large, like webinar type of like web-based platforms, but it's just like the tools that are provided just make it so like easy, and it makes everyone like feel connected, and just having that space to really share and get to like, I want to say like the beef, or for lack of better words, or like the meaningful things and the meaningful conversations, and like skipping a bit of that like small talk. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, as I said before, the framework and just the accountability, I mean, we're all here like for ourselves. So it's a great opportunity and like a gift to ourselves to like work on us and think of us and like see where we want to go next.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniela.
John, I have a quick question. Could I throw one in?
All you.
Yeah, awesome. So one is, I know we're starting to get questions in the chat. We are just hitting our 40-minute mark. So do please start putting any questions you want in there. We'll answer them there. We're also happy to answer some of them out loud here. But while we're doing that, just while we still have our lovely alumni, who I'm so happy to see again. I've missed you these past Sundays that we've been apart. Talk to me, or talk to us a little bit about the tech side of things, because it can be tricky. I know tech is not always everyone's favorite. We're going into a Mercury retrograde. Maybe you don't know how to do this or that. Were there any things about the tech that were great, were not great? Any tips or tricks you'd give somebody joining? Like, what do people need to know from a tech point of view, from your experience? Jump in. Yeah, Lisa, go for it.
So I loved the technology. I'd never used Zoom before in the breakouts. And part of what I want to do is figure out how to work remotely. So I learned how to work with my clients and like Slack and all the tools. And they were super, I hadn't used that stuff before and it was easy. The other thing that was super cool about the technology for me was just the effectiveness of the video calls in the breakout rooms. It felt like we were close together. There were meaningful, intimate conversations. It actually created a safe environment. And safety in all sorts of ways. Safety, one, to explore thoughts or interests or opportunities or your fears and talk about those. But also safety, like, so the Sunday mornings where I live in California, so they were at 7 a.m. and I'm not a morning person. So this group of 26 people saw me every Sunday morning with my hair in a ponytail, the same sweatshirt every single morning, and a cup of coffee, and I couldn't, like, I just couldn't get my thoughts together. And it was okay. It was like, these people love me. This is a safe place. And so that was, that's what came up when you asked about my experience of technology.
You rocked it. You rocked the ponytail, Lisa. Epic. There actually were some questions around timing on there that I'll just quickly answer. Yeah, so there's, the timing ultimately in many ways depends on the group. We look and see where time zones are. We configure. Generally, it's around 10 o'clock EST or 11 o'clock EST on Sundays, around 6, am I right, p.m. EST or 5 p.m. EST on Thursdays. There's actually an earlier one. We've had 2 different sessions on Thursdays, and we're going to be experimenting with this next one to see if that works, just given the spread of participants. So long story short, we try to make it adaptable. And usually if there isn't a time that is comfortable for one time zone or really, really off, we'll try to adjust and make it accessible for another one. And same with the one-on-ones on Tuesdays. We'll generally have those at 2 times, one for people in far kind of Europe or even Asia time zone, and one for sort of US time zone. So we're adaptable. We want to make it easy and accessible for everybody to join. And, we expect that everybody might not join every single one with commitments, but that's why we have the recordings. There was a great question as well around the main outcome of the retreat. So I'd like to put that back to our alumni. If you were to describe the main outcome of the virtual retreat, either for yourself or what you noticed for the group in general, either one, I'd be curious for you guys to answer that one if anybody wants to take the helm. My sailing reference again. Pedro, go ahead.
Great, thanks. So like Lala shared with you guys in the chat, it's tailored. You're going to have the outcome you wish for, and the amount of energy and time you put into it. Because for some people, they want to dig in and to gain more clarity and understand a little bit better about the path, about how they can plan the next steps they're going to take. Some people, we have several people in our group that resigned for their job, and I was amazed, like, whoa, that's huge. So maybe sometimes you need more input, more information to make decisions and discover more about yourself. So basically, you're going to Unsettled is going to create a very designed experience to help people to gain more clarity, but the input and the outcome is going to depend only on you. You can get everything you want. You just need to make some efforts. We have popcorn for my girl Daddy.
Yeah, so something that I noticed just like 2 days into the virtual retreat was just that I was walking to work and I was smiling for like no particular reason, not necessarily because I was excited to be going to work, but I think just like the fact of like finally be taking action and addressing like these issues that have been like bothering me, or just like being in that framework, being in that community, doing something for myself. And I think like another one of the outcomes, I mean, as we've heard, it's all like personal, but I think just like still like, yes, the retreat is over now, but we have this community and we can reach out to each other, and there's Lala and Jonathan and Michael who are there, and just like feeling that connection that we're all kind of like in the same boat for different reasons or objectives, but like that community like stays on. So yeah, I don't know if Lisa or Bianca, if you want to share something.
What was the question? Sorry, I got lost.
Outcomes. How would you describe the outcome of the virtual retreat in the incubator, either for yourself or in general for participants and the crew that we had in January?
A couple of comments. One outcome, just the community going forward. There's a woman that was in my group who lives in Dubai, who was considering coming out to San Francisco. I connected her with a bunch of business networking resources. She's out here right now. I had coffee with her the day before yesterday. So people, community. Another great outcome for me was, so we just finished like a week and a half ago. And since then, I've been using the tools and all that and making some plans going forward directly based on the things that we discussed and the things I worked through during the month. And then like I have, as life is, some things kind of throw a wrench and they don't go the way you want. I actually went back to the exercises and I looked at all the work I did and reminded myself by like, what were those true north things for me that I was really going for? And could I achieve and still directionally get myself there by just other ways of thinking about it? So that frameworks and the tools really helped ground me. And I'm actively using that since we finished the retreat. So that made a difference for me. Bianca, you were going to say something.
You stole my words, but basically I ended up with a set of tools that I've already put in use and I've had really meaningful conversations in my current job that have helped me align to some of the outputs that I gathered from the exercises. So it's those small steps and small changes that have actually been making a difference in my day-to-day.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And yeah, I mean, I think I can answer now, now that I haven't put words in anybody else's mouth. But, you know, I think it goes back to that original concept of how do we navigate uncertainty in life, right? Like we live in incredibly uncertain times, economy, work, technology, mobility, like all these things coming at us at such a rapid pace, I think create an incredible amount of uncertainty in where we're going next. And when we say the tools for navigation, we really mean the tools of how to make those decisions and how to make them intentionally. I think we found over our retreats in person and as well as on the virtual retreat, you know, I think a lot of us have made great decisions in life. We've had a lot of success. We've, you know, met certain benchmarks or checked certain boxes. But, you know, when you think about actually being intentional about what you want to do versus just flowing down the river and taking what comes, I think that move from going with the flow to being intentional and making choices is the space where the Lifestyle Incubator provides an incredible amount of value. I won't say the most, but I think it's designed around that space where you're saying, you know, how do I actually make decisions that are more in line with the things that are important to me? How do I be intentional about those choices and know that it's the right one? Because maybe I have a lot of opportunities and I need to figure out which is the right one, whether it's to, you know, go freelance or to travel for a bit and take time off or to change roles or to quit my role or to just suck it up and make more money for 5 years and then go off and quit and do whatever I want. How do you actually develop the tools, the self-awareness and the frameworks to make those decisions in a way that is right for you, right? Which is why we say it's not prescriptive, because, you know, what works for me is not going to be the same thing that works for Bianca or Lisa or Pedro or Daniela or any of you. And so understanding those processes, right? And being able to have that action and accountability going forward, along with, you know, I think a shared accountability of the community. People are still meeting up, even from our first Lifestyle Incubator, people are still connecting. Those conversations are still going. And so there's a lot beyond that happens, but I'll stop there and ask one of, I think our final questions. You know, keep putting anyone's in the chat if there's anything you're dying to know, but what's next? That's the important thing, right? That's the question. So what is next? So I'm curious, you know, Daniela, Lisa, Pedro, Bianca, what's next for you, right? And that could mean the next day, the week, month, year, lifetime. And how is that changed, or is that changed, or, you know, any reflections you want to share on what's next for you? And how can maybe somebody here help you?
Well, guys, for me, currently I'm planning and experimenting how I can have more time doing the stuff I really enjoy in my work. So basically, I spend a lot of time understanding a purpose for a company and helping them to execute and make a mission to come to reality. And I want to apply this through experiences and living in a different kind of work format where I can work and live in different places. So basically, for now on, I'm building and working through this main goal. That's it for me.
Mine is similar. Next steps, it's Pedro used the word experiments. So one thing we worked with a lot was, I might get the words wrong, but just trying tiny experiments, medium experiments, different ones to test hypotheses and get information, so that, like, even though I know where kind of my true north direction is, it's like the sailing analogy of tacking and things like that. I got that wrong too, but in my head, that's how it feels. I'm not a sailor. But just gaining more information so that I can continue reframing, recalibrating, so that I'm constantly going towards what's true for me. So I've got a couple of experiments, some pretty big ones. And for me, it's all along getting information about how to put together the next several decades of my life, and how work is a part of that, but not necessarily all of that. So for the shorter term, how can I work with my existing clients, maybe when I'm not based in the same country as they are, different time zones, experimenting with working remotely. So I'm thinking 30-day retreat kind of thing to test out some of that in the next couple of months.
For me, I'm still processing everything that I've learned about myself and we've learned about each other in the last month. Just to say, like, this is it's taken me a while to understand, but there's no like quick fix and quick outcome. Like there might be like some more like tangible or like measurable outcomes, but I think like something that resonated and stayed with me for this past month in the retreat is that it's all a process. And as Pedro and Lisa mentioned, like, yes, it's about like experiments and like trying and testing things out, and just like seeing like what works best for me. So yeah, at the moment, like I'm still in that phase, but like with the, I don't know how to say, like confidence, or like just like happy that I have the frameworks that I need to move forward. And something that I found like really valuable from the exercises that we did, and there was one particular one, I won't give it all away, but about expectations. And it just made me realize, like, what do I expect of myself? And it was kind of like I forgave myself, or just like accepted that it's okay not to have everything like figure out. Like sometimes we have this pressure from ourselves or from others that like, okay, you need to know like what you're going and what you're doing and like have all your objectives for the next year or 5 years. And it's like, well, maybe we're just like wired differently. And again, coming back, it takes like, it's about process. So yeah, I think that was like the biggest like outcome and lesson for myself.
Really quick, because I know we're pressed on time, but for me, it was identifying the trigger points that were causing me to not like certain parts of my job, and identifying what I really loved about my job, and then creating the conversation or communicating those points so I could create boundaries that made my day-to-day more enjoyable. So that's like a quick next step that I was able to do after Unsettled. And I mean, it was all about the exercises that I did that got me to that point.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. And again, I mean, thank you so much for just joining us, for going through the month with us, for sticking with us, for coming back and sharing your experience with us. I think I want to reinforce, one point that I think everybody said in some way, is that life is a process, right? And like, there's never a point where we're going to figure our shit out. Fact, right? Like, it is an ongoing process of discovery, of experimentation, of learning, of trial and error. And for us, we see as committing 1 month of your life to that process and to experimenting, to figure out what are the elements that are settled and what are the elements that are unsettled, and how do you find the clarity that you're looking for to kind of push through and move in an intentional direction, is a valuable part of that process. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back to Lala to officially close us out. We went a little over time, but most people have stuck with us, which is beautiful. So thank you guys. And
we went a lot over time. Talkative bunch. In case you're wondering how we spend 2 hours on a call together, you can get a very good sense of how, because time does fly. But I do want to thank you guys all for joining us today. I want to let you know that you can get in touch with us anytime if you have other questions. If you want to know more, you can reach out to John, myself. You can find us on the Unsettled website or however you found us here today. And yeah, I think, one of the clearest things to say on ending is, don't come to us if you want answers. Come to us if you want better and better questions and you want to have a lot of fun along the journey along the way as we kind of play around with that. And yeah, really, really great to have you here. It's always super exciting to get to connect globally, some familiar faces, some new faces. We super appreciate your time. And I think we're ready to sign off. Yeah, good to go. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye for now.
Have a good one. See you in March.
Bye.